Welcome, everybody, back to another special episode of the Amateur Experts Podcast, where we are experts of absolutely nothing. Want to welcome everybody to our final version 3 mock draft with trades included. This is what we think is going to happen. And in about 3 days from now, we're going to be watching it. Really excited. Of course, I'm your host, Landon Oliver, with my co host, Andrew Scott. What's up, dude?
Yes, sir. Good to be back, man. I'm glad to hear the words final mock draft come out of your mouth because it means that we're really close to the NFL draft. So for us, it's 3 days away. If you're listening to this on the day that this comes out, that means that we're down to only 2 days away. So I'm ready, man. It's weird because the Rams don't even have a first round pick, and I don't think I've ever been this ready for the first round of the NFL draft. So I'm excited for Thursday night.
Yeah, I think the last time, I mean, I've been like more excited about some drafts. The Colts generally pick a little bit later on, so I'm kind of used to where we pick this year. But the pick leading up to the Andrew Luck draft, like when we had the first overall pick, Luck was the pick. Like I was so excited, man. I couldn't wait. So, uh, speaking of, represent my boys once again on the
Of
show.
course.
Yeah, the blue contrasts a little bit with the red I got today. From playing 18 holes with my boy. Shout out Ray Mason. So I was actually going through some of these picks on here, and he's a Patriots fan. And I think he would have been excited for your pick as well, considering it's the same as mine, just different ways to get there. So
Right.
without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's hop right in. Let's see what we got going on. There are some trades that we're going to go over as well. And I'm going to give you some of the compensation that I have in mind, uh, just so you kind of get a better idea of what the teams would be trading away or trading for and why they make the move that they do. And then there's a couple of picks that I kind of want to give some hypotheticals on as well. Just kind of, there's some news that came out this afternoon,
Mhm.
after we already had all this typed up. So we can kind of give you a better understanding of what could possibly happen with that as well. So, um, without further ado, I know we've talked on this pick probably millions of times between especially the last two mock drafts we've done, but
Yeah.
just in general, and that's Jacksonville. Foregone conclusion, Trevor Lawrence is going number one. So,
Right. Yeah. There's not
I don't-
much discussion to be
yeah,
had here.
I was gonna say
Generational
I don't know
quarterback.
what more you want to talk about on that, but if you want to hear more, like us go a little bit more in depth on that, you can listen to our other two episodes, especially episode one, where we actually get a little more invested in him. Um, and that goes for pick two as well, because we've pretty much had this one called the entire way. It doesn't change. We're both agreement on here. Quarterback Zach Wilson going two to the Jets.
Yeah, this was one where after his pro day, I forget who it was that reported it, but somebody said that a scout said after the show Zach Wilson put on that the draft pretty much starts at 3, and that these pretty much since his pro day that 1 and 2 has been kind of set in stone. Um, I don't think there's any chances that that's a smoke screen, but I do think there's some smoke screens going on as we get to pick 3, though.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, obviously, the 49ers made the trade a few weeks ago to move up to number three. And there's a lot of talk of, you hear Mac Jones, you hear Justin Fields, you hear Trey Lance, I mean, and really like today, even Kyle Shanahan came out at his press conference and said, there were five quarterbacks whenever we traded up that we were comfortable with. And that, quote unquote, air quotations, they don't even know who they're going to pick.
Yeah,
You
my
don't make,
ass.
yeah, you don't make that move unless you know who you're going to pick. And
Right.
so, I mean, it's just coach talk basically. But from everything that I've been reading and that I've heard, it seems you're kind of hearing the same things that I am. I believe they are going to go with Trey Lance here. Um, and you, like I said, you seem to be on that bandwagon as well. I know that
Yeah.
sucks for you.
It does. It does. As a Rams fan, that's going to hurt my heart because the potential that's there with Shanahan and Trey Lance is terrifying. The most recent thing that I read is that it's down to Mac Jones and Trey Lance. Like the 49ers scouting team wants Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan wants Mac Jones, but he might be willing to defer to the scouting department or something like that was the report that I read today. And I just don't like. I think Mac Jones, if he gets drafted here at three to San Francisco, I think he would be a fine pro. I mean, he's already shown in college that if he's in a good system with good talent around him, that he can be successful. And that would be, the NFL equivalent of that with the 49ers, basically. Not I mean, the 49ers don't have the talent at the NFL level that, Alabama has compared to their college opponents. But plenty of talent, great coaching staff, great system. I think Mac Jones will be very successful, but I don't think he has the ceiling that Trey Lance has. And I think if you're going to spend that kind of draft capital and trade up, and if you tell me it's between this guy that's really safe but not with a bunch of upside, you have this guy that, is there's a little more risk that comes with him, but just so much more untapped potential and so much more upside in the long term. I just don't see them trading away that many pieces to go with Mac Jones, but who knows?
Yeah, that's kind of where I land as well. I just think, you've already got one Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster who, I mean, as we've seen, he's taken that team to a Super Bowl. When everything is right and everything is working, you can win with him. It's
Right.
the same thing Max Jones gives you. If everything is right, everything's great, you have great playmakers, a great line, great running game. We know that he can make things work. But I don't get why you would trade up to get that pick and just go with the safe option whenever you could potentially have, a top 10, you know, maybe even top 5 borderline quarterback, a couple years from now. Very similar to what Buffalo did with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And, Trey Lance is, I mean, obviously he's more mobile than Mac Jones, but people forget North Dakota State. I know the competition level is not the same that Mac Jones faced in the SEC, but they run just as much of a pro ready offense
Hmm.
as any quarterback, or well, quarterback and any college in the nation. That is a pro style system that they run there. And he's going to come in, I think, a lot more prepared than a lot of people are even thinking, because yes, he does have that untapped potential, but let's not forget that guy, you know, a couple years ago, whenever they played a full season, obviously he didn't play a full season last year, which brings question marks, but the guy was just lights out. And I'm really excited if this does happen. I'm really excited to watch that 49ers team. Hopefully they stay healthy, but we'll see what happens Thursday, but that's the direction we have them going in.
Yeah, yeah, it would be heartbreaking for me because I've been Trevor Lawrence is clear quarterback one for me, but as far as quarterback two is concerned, I've been flip flopping kind of between Lance and Justin Fields, and so I certainly don't want either one of those guys to land in the hands of Kyle Shanahan. So it would be heartbreaking, but it makes too much sense.
Yeah. So moving on to pick 4, this is where I have my first trade. Andrew, we'll go ahead and get your pick, and then I can kind of discuss the trade a little bit. Go ahead and tell us who you got Falcons taking at number 4.
Yeah, for me, I wanted to mock a trade here because it makes a lot of sense because you've got Matt Ryan there who they've had to restructure, a couple different times at this point to where his contract it's not very financially sensible to get out of that deal or to get out of that contract for about another 2 years now. I would say, I mean, they can do it after this upcoming year is over with, but it makes more sense 2 years from now. And I do think that Arthur Smith took that job thinking that he can win with Matt Ryan. And I think that is a right assumption to make too. I do like Matt Ryan's don't come along every single year, and so you're talking about making a decision of, do you want to stick with Matt Ryan or do you want to take a shot at the unknown with one of these rookie quarterbacks, which is if they're staying at 4, they're either going to take the best non-quarterback available or they're going to go the quarterback route and take the quarterback 4. And most years I would probably have them trading out of this pick, but the level of talent right here, man, especially with 3 quarterbacks coming off the board and having with this class as great as it is at the top and getting to have your pick of the non-quarterbacks at this point, and being able to take Kyle Pitts, who I have them taking, I think it takes that offense to a whole nother level. And if Arthur Smith can be as good on the offensive side of the ball in Atlanta as he was in Tennessee. And, I think, especially with if this pick ends up happening, I think he has a much better passing attack as far as quarterback plus weapons in Atlanta than he did in Tennessee. The running game's clearly not going to be as strong as is. We don't know what they're going to do at the draft at running back, but, Derrick
Don't
Henry's
do
not walking through
anything.
the
Give me
door.
Mike Davis
Yeah, yeah, right.
as
Yeah,
well.
so, but from a passing standpoint, I mean, they're going to be damn near impossible to defend. There is some talk of them possibly trading Julio, just because, I mean, as of right now, they literally can't afford to pay this number 4 pick. Whoever they do end up drafting with the cap hit that the number 4 slot carries, they can't pay him right now. So they're going to have to do something. Whether that ends up being trading Julio, we'll see. Um, but that, I mean, that would make this pick even more, that much more important if Julio's out the door. And in that case, I could see Jamar Chaser as well. I think, this Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase at the top. These two guys are two of the most talented guys I've seen in a long time, and is bad. I really wanted to mock a trade here, but seeing with a team, being able to grab one of these guys, I could make myself do it. I think they stick and they either draft a quarterback for or they go this route and take Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue taking Kyle Pitts there. I mean, obviously, we both know like that guy's a unicorn, and I'm really excited to see his landing spot.
Hmm.
But for me, it just basically came down to, like you said, they are trying to move. Well, I'm not going to say they're trying to move, but
It has come out that it was
yeah,
reported they had been looking to trade back
yeah,
though.
yeah, and I mean that was even reported last year as well. So I mean, there's probably some smoke to that fire, but I just think also with a trade down here, um, basically it comes down to, even as great as Kyle Pitts is, as great as Jamar Chase is as prospects, um, it almost seems like once again, it's just that those are luxury picks because they don't hit any of the big problems on the Falcons roster. Whereas with this trade down, you're able to save some money, possibly keep Julio, add a premier defensive player, which we'll get into when I have them picking at 9, and you're able to recoup some picks for next year as well as some
Hmm.
extra picks this year. And I just think that's all around a better direction. So for Denver, I have them trading up here to number 4. They are trading number 9 overall, number 71, which is their third round pick, and their first round pick next year to move up to get that quarterback of the future for Denver. We clearly know they're more than likely not sold on Drew Lock as the quarterback of the future. I don't think there's a way that they, can afford to start him next year. Maybe they do. And it's just considered a lost season if he doesn't click. But with everything that we just said about Mac Jones, where if the line is right, if the running game's right, if the weapons are right, that's a guy that can succeed and win for your franchise. And if there's
Right.
one thing we know about Denver, they have weapons. They have a good running game. They have a great defense and a great defensive coach. And there's
And a
all the
decent O line.
yeah, and a decent O-line. So all the pieces are there for Drew, or not Drew Lock, but all the pieces are there for Mac Jones to come in and take over that locker room with his leadership and win some ball games. And I just I think it's a very smart move for Denver to take up or to trade up and take him. And I think it's a very smart move, like I touched on with Atlanta, to, they get a third round pick this year. They're able to move back, save some salary as well from that pick, still get a premier player, and you're able to add an extra first round pick for next year. Where if the Mac Jones experiment does falter, or if they do end up trotting out Drew Lock again, you're looking at possibly another top 10 pick next year.
Right.
And so that's kind of the route that I took with the Falcons pick. But I do have the Broncos trading up, taking Mac Jones here at 4.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I like it. I would love the move for Atlanta. I would love the haul that they got. To move back. I do think it's the smart play, and wouldn't be mad at it at all. But I don't, man, I wouldn't want to be the person that has to decide on not taking Kyle Pitts or not taking Jamar Chase and trading down. Like that would be it would be a smart decision if they get an offer like what you're talking about, and makes all the sense in the world because they have so many holes on the defensive side of the ball, which you help them fill here in a little while. Um, but I wouldn't want to be. I do not envy the guy sitting in the seat that has to make that final okay and say, yeah, okay, let's move on and not take Kyle Pitts or not take Jamar Chase. Like, man, that would be so tough.
Yeah, and it's definitely a double-edged sword. It's
Right.
damned if you do, damned if you don't. So,
Yeah.
but that's kind of what I think is going to happen on pick number 4. Like I said, this is what we think is going to happen. Obviously,
Yeah.
you
There's a
could
big
you
difference
could get on
between.
here and like especially Broncos fans. I know you're going to be mad giving up, your top 10 pick and a first rounder next year to get Mac Jones. We hear all the internet chatter. So go ahead and roast me in the comments below. But you know what? Whenever he ends up on your team here in about 2.5 days. Um, so now let's move on here to pick 5 with the Cincinnati Bengals. We've heard these two prospects back and forth for
Mhm.
weeks now. You went one side, I went the other side. I'm
Yeah.
really excited, to get on this because my opinion actually changed from I was actually, and I think we flip
We
flopped.
flip flopped. We
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
from where our you made too good of points last time. I had to, but I have them taking wide receiver Jamar Chase, pairing him back with his college quarterback Joe Burrow. You have them taking offensive lineman Penei Sewell from Oregon. And I do agree that your move is the correct move, but it's the Cincinnati Bengals. And
Fair.
yeah, whenever they make the correct move and it's not just a slam dunk like last year with Joe Burrow, then that'll be the first time they've done that. I have them taking the luxury pick. It's Jamar Chase is going to look awesome in that offense. He's going to look great in that uniform, running those routes, getting wide open while Burrow is getting absolutely murdered behind him,
Yeah,
not
right.
able to throw him the ball. Um,
Just don't send Jamar Chase deep because he ain't gonna have time to for Joe Burrow ain't gonna have time to give him the damn ball anyway. So
so, I do have them taking Jamar Chase. So give me your pick here with Sewell,
yeah, I mean, even they signed Riley Reef. They drafted an offensive lineman in the first round last year.
who missed
But
last year. So it's going to be like they're getting another first round offensive tackle back.
right, yeah, I truly think, man, especially when you have rookie quarterbacks that you win from the inside out, and if you can give Burrow an offensive line, like take your pick, move either one of the tackles on the inside, put Swell on the left tackle, one on the right tackle, and then let the other tackle end up, playing guard, whoever ends up being the odd man out. I don't care how you do it, but um, this is too good of an offensive line prospect. You've got your rookie quarterback coming into his former rookie quarterback coming into his second year, and they're not lacking weapons, by any means with Tyler Boyd and T Higgins. Like those are two really good receivers. Now, Jamar Chase would leap both of them. He would instantly be the best, playmaker on that team without a doubt. But um, I do think there is some truth to the smoke that's going on with the Jamar Chase to Cincy. Like I think that that's a real possibility. I really do think that it's going to be one of these two guys. And 2.0, I had Jamar Chase going here, and then that would be the one where it's not going to shock me a single bit if that ends up what's happening. But I just, man, I don't know how. I don't know how that front office could watch Burrow just get absolutely mobbed every single week the way he did last year and not take a generational type of left tackle if that's what he ends up being, like,
Yeah.
what the word is out there.
I'd
I don't
pump the
think he's
brakes
the
on that. I don't
most
think he's a generational tackle.
well, yeah, I don't think he's the most pro ready tackle either, like right this second. Like I think,
I
if
think
you wanted to
Slater,
plug him, yeah, if you want to plug
Slater's
him,
my favorite.
yeah, if you want to plug and play somebody, day one and expect them to have like pro production, I think Slater's better fit to do that than um, Sewell. But um, and I don't know about the whole generational talent thing either that people have thrown around, but I do think he is very worthy of a top 5 pick and has, easily enough upside to end up being the best offensive lineman out of this draft. And it's just, I mean, For me, it was I was a Joe Mixon owner for part of last year, so that was really my only in fantasy. So that was really my only interest in watching the Bengals. And whenever I would turn on a Bengals game for the 3 games that Joe Mixon was healthy for last year, it's just like there's nowhere to go for Burrow, for Mixon, for anybody. And I don't know how you don't address the offensive line with this pick, but again, it's like I said with Kyle Pitts with Atlanta, sometimes there's just those guys at the top of the board, especially this year, that, eh, you know, I don't want to be the guy that makes the decision to pass on those guys in the draft. So it would be, even though it's not, I don't think receiver is as big of a need as offensive line. Like I would have a hard time giving them shit for making that pick too, though. Even if it isn't the quote unquote smart pick.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can't fault, Jamar Chase going there. I mean, I understand it, but I just don't think it's a smart move. I think you got to protect your franchise. And if you have a clean pocket, if you have a quarterback that's thrown from a clean pocket, all these guys are NFL receivers. I mean, obviously some guys are better than others,
Right.
but I mean, it's not going to matter if he's on his back. So pick number 6 here, we have the Miami Dolphins, and both of us have dream scenario for the Dolphins happening here.
Yeah.
This, if you're a Dolphins fan and you're listening to this or you're watching this, you just got to be ecstatic right now with the way the board fell. I have them taking tight end Kyle Pitts off the board, stopping. I mean, I know it's hard to say pick 6 is a slide for somebody, but when you're talking about a guy like Kyle Pitts, it's a slide.
Man, the hype that he's getting, like if he doesn't go number 1 overall, it's like, man, this guy's already sliding. I mean,
Yeah,
like I don't know if there's ever been this much just
tight end hype.
rocket ship tight end hype, man, pre-draft. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's I'm super excited of it though, and it's
Yeah,
well
well
deserved,
deserved.
well
Hey,
deserved.
hmm
So I have them taking Kyle Pitts, tight end from Florida, pairing him down there with Tua, giving him another weapon, and just obviously a mismatch piece that can just go up, especially in the red zone. And he's just he's just going to be awesome from everything that we think is going to happen. I'm excited. You actually have them taking the dude I had going at 5, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, there was no way I was letting him get past 6. I mean, he's way too good of a receiver. Um, I like Devontae Parker. I think that he's a solid receiver. I think Jamar Chase would look great on the other side. Same story as with Cincinnati. He's going to immediately step in on that team and be the best receiver out there. Um, I mean, a lot of people are ready to throw in the towel on Tua off right after year 1. I think even though I wasn't really like that high on Tua coming out of college, I still think that the part of last season that he played is too small of a sample size to just throw in the towel and say they need to be looking for the next step. And if you're not going to be doing that, you need to surround him with weapons, whoever those weapons may be. And with Kyle Pitts already off the board, that's what sent me to Jamar Chase. This one was simple for me. They didn't need a quarterback. Kyle Pitts is already off the board, so insert Jamar Chase and move on. This one was really easy.
Yeah, for sure on that one. I think the Dolphins would be great with either of our picks.
Yeah.
They would probably be ecstatic. So pick number 7, we actually have your first trade on the board here. I'm going to go ahead and give my trade, or not trade, but my pick. I have the Lions. I considered a trade back here, but I think with the way the board fell, I think the Lions would run this card up there. If this is how it plays out, I have them taking offensive lineman Penei Sewell, who you had going number 5 to Cincinnati. I think they want to build that team from inside out. I think Dan Campbell is the type of guy who just wants, offensive line, defensive line, let's beat you up. Whenever you have a chance to get possibly the best offensive lineman in this class, which is also a position of need for you, it's just a slam dunk pick. I don't think there's any way they trade down if that is available. But obviously he's not on your board. And so you did have a trade down here. Go ahead and give us yours.
Yeah, so that was what made the decision for me. Really, was it? It's been reported a couple of times that the Lions are a team looking to move down, and if Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell or Kyle Pitts were still here, even with the Lions do have T.J. Hawkinson, but with how versatile Kyle Pitts is, I don't think a team having a tight end matters, regardless of how good the tight end is. Like the 49ers have George Kittle. They're not going to be high enough to take Kyle Pitts.
Well, I mean,
Um,
look at New England, what they did. They signed, two guys
right.
all season.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like, you're talking, I mean, the
And
Chiefs
Kyle
have
Pitts isn't
Kelsey.
your normal tight end either.
No, no, they're not. So,
He's
like, that
a
wouldn't have,
weapon.
right. That wouldn't, like, them having TJ Hawkinson would not have stopped me from, fitting Kyle Pitts in with the Lions either. But with Swell, with Pitts, with Jamar Chase all off the board, and the reports of them wanting to move back. And then there's been some mixed reports. So my trade is with the Patriots and the Lions. I didn't get as fancy with it as to with you as you did, is like, the compensation that they would be getting in return. But I would imagine it would be something like, another mid-round pick this year, and then probably next year's first-round pick, something along those lines that they would probably end up getting for this move for the Lions to move down from 7 to 15. Um, but so I have the Patriots moving up to 7. There's been some conflicting reports where one report came out that said that the Patriots are looking to trade up if Justin Fields falls, which is, if you consider pick 7, him still being on the board, falling, which I do think, that could end up being the case. That the Patriots would be interested in moving up for him. There was also Todd McShay put out his an ESPN Plus article, I believe today, or I know I read it today. I don't know if it came out today, about kind of what he's hearing around the league, as of late. And his note on the Patriots was that rival GMs are hearing that they're more likely to trade down than trade up, regardless of who's on the board, which would fit kind of what the Patriots have done in the past in the draft and makes sense. So this one's, I don't feel extremely confident with this, but I do think that Justin Fields shouldn't be on the board at this point. And the Patriots off season during free agency didn't really fit the normal Patriot mold either. They were extremely
Aggressive.
aggressive in the offseason in free agency, and so while we haven't seen them be, extremely aggressive in the draft in the past so much, I think they painted a clear picture in free agency that Bill doesn't plan on picking at 15 again anytime soon, and he doesn't like the lack of talent that team had on the roster. And that the lack of talent also goes to the quarterback position. Unfortunately, I hate to say that with Cam Newton on the roster, because I love Cam, but and I do think this would be a good transition for Fields as well, because while Cam and Fields aren't mirror images of each other or anything by any means, Fields is a much better passer, and but I do think it would be a good transition for, like, Justin Fields doesn't have to start day one with Cam there. He can learn the offense, and they can run. It might not be a mirror image offense, but they can run a somewhat similar offense with Fields and with Cam under the offense as well. So I think this would be a good spot for Fields to be able to not have to start right away, um, but be in a position to, kind of try to take the talent that they have acquired on the offensive end during free agency to the next level that someone like Cam at this point in his career might not be able to take. So I kind of basically just followed the aggressiveness from free agency for the Patriots with this one. And, their name has been attached to Justin Fields a lot. And during the process the last couple of weeks, if the 49ers would have taken Fields at 3 instead of Lance, I probably wouldn't have mocked this trade. But with Fields still being on the board, the Patriots and Fields being connected so much here lately, that's what caused me wanting to move them up and take Fields here at number 7.
Yeah. So, that makes perfect sense. And coincidentally, I have a similar move coming down here in a few picks. So, pick number 8 for the Carolina Panthers, we actually both have the same guy here. I believe this is the same guy we had in version 2.0 as well, especially with the Sam Darnold trade. They just want to kind of secure his protection. We both have them taking offensive lineman Rashawn Slater, who we both agreed does seem like the most pro ready tackle in this draft so far, and he's personally my favorite one.
Yeah, I mean, I heard Andrew Whitworth on a Bleacher Report an NFL draft special a few weeks ago, talking about Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell and guys like that, and he essentially said the same thing, that he thought Rashawn Slater was the most pro-ready offensive lineman in this draft. And whenever he said that, that was all I needed to hear. Like, whenever Andrew Whitworth speaks, you listen in terms of offensive line. Like, it doesn't really get much better than that guy. So, yeah, this one is This is kind of an interesting look again from today. He did say that the Panthers are a team that a lot of people have heard could still be looking at quarterback if one falls, even with the Sam Darnold trade, because they don't have to pick the option. They don't have to pick up his option prior to the draft. Um, and so you have kind of a use to possibly trade him or just stick with him long term and then trade the rookie that you've got, or go forward with the rookie, whatever the case may be. It's kind of like a wild card thing where teams, if that was part of what played into me having the Patriots move up to 7, was to kind of um, not have to worry about that quarterback limbo that might happen there with the Panthers and the Broncos and teams like that, the Broncos who you had trading up as well. There. But yeah, I mean, what makes sense here is that they address the offensive line. It's a clear need. And you want to find out. You've got Darnold for 1 year for sure. You want to find out if you've got something there. So he's got weapons already. He's the best running back in the league, plays on your team. So give the guy some protection and see what he can do.
Yeah, I think it would be a very smart move for both parties. I think you know, Sam Darnold would flourish. I think Rashawn Slater would flourish with the coaching staff that they've put there. I think it's just a slam dunk fit. So number 9, obviously I have a different team picking here. Like I talked about, the Falcons, who traded down with the Broncos. The Broncos move up, get Mac Jones, secure that quarterback. The Falcons get a third round pick number 9, and a first next year from Denver, and they still land with my guy, my favorite cornerback in this draft, and that's J.C. Horn to help shore up that secondary. And I just think, you know, I think this is a smart move for Atlanta. I think it's the right move for Atlanta. Um, as great as it would be to have Kyle Pitts, to have Jamar Chase,
Mm-hmm.
those guys, it's just such a luxury pick because that defense, especially the last few years, it is it's just been so bad that it's been hard for them to win games regardless of the amounts that they put up. And we both know that offense can score in bunches. And I just don't think it's a winning recipe if you just, I mean, yeah, is it fun to watch? Is it great for fantasy? Yeah, for sure. But if there's a way you can get an extra first round pick, an extra third round pick, and you can get a guy like JC Horn to shore up one of the biggest needs on your team, and save a little salary. Maybe you can possibly keep, Julio as well. It's just, I think it's a slam dunk move, and that's where I went with the Falcons.
Yeah, I love it, man. If I don't think that JC Horn will be the first corner off the board, but similar to what you said, I think he should be. He's my favorite corner as well. But so I've got the original team picking here, the Denver Broncos, and Mac Jones, who apparently might be going number 3 on Thursday, slid down to number 9 for me. I just don't think that um, between the 3 guys who everybody's trying to figure out what order they're going to go in, I don't think that he possesses the upside that Lance or Fields have. But this is the same guy you had going to the Broncos as well. Just on my side, they didn't have to trade up to make it happen. But the points you made, I completely agree with across the board. I mean, they've got a decent offensive line. They've got weapons all around them. They've got a running game with Melvin Gordon and Mike Boone, who I think is a low key pickup for them. I think that he'll be a great complementary back to Melvin Gordon with Philip Lindsay no longer there, and I do think that that's an upgrade from. Oh my God, I just went blank. Who's the running back they drafted a couple years ago, the same year as Philip Lindsay, and he was supposed to be the starter, and then Philip Lindsay outplayed him.
Oh, was it?
Oh my God,
Was it
I'm
Booker?
going blank. No, it wasn't Booker. Booker was already there. Oh my God. I'm so mad at myself for going blank on this. I can't remember the damn running back's name. But clearly I think Mike Boone is a upgrade considering I can't remember the guy's name. I'm gonna have to look that up because it's gonna bug me. Um, but so, I basically echo all the statements that you made earlier whenever you had him going at 4 after your mock trade with Atlanta. I think it's a good fit. I think it would be an upgrade with Drew Lock, an upgrade over Drew Lock. Drew Lock clearly isn't the answer, and they've got, so much set up around the quarterback
Was it Royce
position.
Freeman?
Royce Freeman, there you go. Yeah, I think Mike Boone is an upgrade over Royce Freeman. Um, And Melvin Gordon obviously is still there and is going to be the starter. So, I mean, they've got on the offensive side, they got every piece except for quarterback, and they've got a great defense, especially after they, I think mock draft 1.0. I mocked a corner here, and that made a lot more sense during 1.0 versus now whenever they've made so many upgrades to the secondary through free agency. So, um,
Yeah, they traded, yeah, or not trade, but they picked up Kyle Fuller, a few weeks ago, and
yeah,
we
no
actually went
business
a little bit.
being a free agent. It's just a cap thing for Chicago. The only reason he was on the market, so the fact that they were able to grab him, bring back Justin Simmons, their secondary should be solid. Yeah, and I'm not the biggest Mac Jones fan, but like you outlined earlier, if everything's right around him, he can succeed. And I do think that I think this is one of the more favorable quarterback destinations in the draft this year in terms of the pieces around the quarterback position. So I would like this for Mac a lot.
Yeah, so same player, just different avenues to get there.
Right.
So pick number 10, once again, we have the same guy as well. I think this is a guy that we had on our previous mocks as well. So not going to change uh, too much here. It's going to be cornerback Patrick Surtain the second, falling down to Dallas. I know Dallas would be ecstatic to get him. He's considered by a lot to be, the cornerback one in this draft, even though we both like J.C. Horn a little bit more personally, but there's a reason we're not NFL draft GMs. We're not scouts. So I just think as physical as he is, and the Cowboys obviously um, last year we saw how just dead in the water their defense was all season long, and this can help shore up some of those secondary needs and possibly help whenever Dak gets back. If he can come back the same, maybe help them win that division because right now it's pretty much just looking like Washington's the only team standing in the way of Dallas.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, J.C. Horn is my favorite corner in the draft, but Patrick Surtain isn't far behind him. I think that he is a really, really talented corner as well. I like these two guys a lot. I like Caleb Farley a lot too. I mean, I know he's been sliding a little bit lately because of the injury concerns, but I think that there's quite a few really talented. Like this is a good year to need a corner. And so for me, he was the first corner off the board. And even though I like JC Horn a little bit more, if this does end up happening, like I think it will, I still don't really have a problem with it. I think it's going to be a great pick for Dallas. Um, and if they don't take some secondary help, I think Cowboys fans might riot at this point. I literally don't think I've seen a mock draft. I haven't looked at a shit ton. I look at probably a few every couple weeks. Um, I don't think I've seen one that hadn't had a corner going at this pick, and almost always been Patrick Surtain. Like this seems like one of the most obvious picks of the draft up to this point.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so I mean, and obviously we're both of the same thinking here. So we'll move on to pick 11, where I have surprise another trade. And I have the New England Patriots. I know you were talking earlier about Justin Fields sliding, and there's always that one guy that slides to that, 10th, 11th. Obviously, we know Mahomes slid to 10. And so I have Justin Fields sliding all the way down to 11. And Bill Belichick's just like, nope, can't do it anymore. This has been an aggressive offseason for me. I'm going to get aggressive again here. They trade up with um, their storied rival, the New York Giants. Obviously, we know the history
The
between those.
only team they can beat in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and so we have them moving up, or more. So I have them moving up. Number 11, the New England Patriots trade their 15th overall pick, the number 177 overall pick in that draft in this year's draft, and their 2022 first round pick um, for next year. So um, I have them moving up, taking Justin Fields, number 11, and the Giants move all the way down to 15. And, they get some more draft capital, especially next year. If they go into this year, Daniel Jones isn't the guy. If he doesn't show any improvement next year, they're more than likely picking top 10 once again. And they have an extra first round pick to get that new quarterback should they decide to do that next year, some help as well. So I just think the Patriots, Justin Fields slides out of the top 10. I know you said earlier that if he does end up sliding, you've heard, the Patriots would be willing to move up to get him. obviously, I didn't even hear that report until you just mentioned it here. This is just what I was going on, just based on what I would do and what I think is going to happen. And I think Justin Fields stops his slide here at number 11 with New England.
Yeah, I mean, I still love the fit. I would hate it because I would have to retire all like the Bill Belichick sucks memes that I've been firing out over the last year, having fun with because of my, deep-rooted hate for the Patriots. That's all going to have to come to a screeching halt because, the mix of Bill and a quarterback as talented as Justin Fields, um, my fun would be over. So it would suck if it ends up happening, but it makes a lot of sense. For me, I've got the Giants sticking with their pick here at 11. I went back and forth. I wanted, even with the signing of Kenny Galladay, I wanted to mock an offensive weapon here, like the Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, something like that. Um, but I came back to what I think I've done pretty much. I think both of them, I know for sure on 1.0 because I remember in the YouTube comments after 1.0 went out, I actually had a Giants fan get into the comments and roast me for mocking a defensive player who I believe was Quiddy Pay in that one as well. Whenever whenever their defense was clearly so much better than their offense last year, which my response basically was, your defense was better than your offense because Daniel Jones is playing quarterback. And as long as Daniel Jones is playing quarterback, it doesn't matter how many talented players you have around him, your offense is still going to be worse than your defense. And that's going to be the case next year. Daniel Jones isn't going anywhere next year. Now, I don't think he's the answer. That doesn't mean that he's not the answer, because I also thought coming out of the NFL draft that Josh Allen was like the fourth best quarterback in his class, and Josh Allen is now laughing at me. So Daniel Jones could come out and kill it with Kenny Galladay and the rebuilt offense. But is good as their defense was last year, and it was kind of, I think that they had an underrated defense. I think that they were pretty like were on the cusp of being a top 10 defense last year. Their pass rush sucks, period. I mean, Leonard Williams was their best pass rusher. He plays from the interior, and it's okay saying your best pass rusher plays from the interior if your team has like Aaron Donald on the team or something. But whenever you don't have a single edge rusher that had more than like 4 sacks, I think last year, there's clearly a need there, regardless if Leonard Williams came back or not. And so I'm sticking with it. I've got them taking defensive end Quiddy Pay out of Michigan and sticking with that pick.
Yeah. Yeah. Hard to argue that. I mean, I know some Giants fans might argue that. But I have the Giants addressing that offensive need that they're so adamant about here in just a few picks. So you'll really like my draft. Pick. So pick number 12, we have the Philadelphia Eagles taking, and we both have them taking an Alabama wide receiver, just a different one. And if there's one thing we know about the Eagles, it's that they will find a way to screw up a wide receiver selection. They might actually get it right this year because both the guys that are on the board, I think
it's hard to miss right here.
Yeah. Do they draft Kadarius Toney here? Possibly. You never know. It's the Eagles. So I have them selecting wide receiver Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. You have them selecting his teammate, wide receiver Devontae Smith, Heisman winner out of Alabama. Like we both saying, I think Jalen Waddle might be a better NFL prospect than Devontae Smith, just based on the size, the speed, the hands. We all know all that, but Devontae Smith was so hard for me to pass up here because regardless of size issues, I know you hear it all the time. You've heard it all off season. Is he going to be able to play in the NFL, as well as he played in college due to size? Well, look, SEC cornerbacks, it's not necessarily like they're the smallest guys on the field either. He's been going up against NFL type competition. He's been roasting people. So I think if the Eagles make either one of these guys their picks, I think the fan base might actually get some relief at that wide receiver position because they've done everything they can the last few years to screw it up. Speaking of, I saw a funny video. I know you would get a kick out of it too. It was on Twitter, but I think it was a TikTok video somebody made, which if there's one thing I don't have, it is TikTok. I refuse.
I don't either. My wife shows me some really funny shit that comes from
Yeah,
TikTok, but
Emma sends me shit all the time.
I don't have it either though.
But I'm just buried deep in like I've got the old man, get off my lawn.
I'm never gonna be on
Yeah,
TikTok.
I'm never
Yeah.
gonna be on TikTok.
Yeah, I get it.
But it was a TikTok video. It was a video of the Vikings who picked right after the Eagles last year, and it showed Mike Zimmer, the scouts, the team president, the GM, all of them were in their separate rooms, and it was like a video of the Vikings cameras of their pick. And whenever the Eagles made the selection and passed on Justin Jefferson,
Oh, for Jalen Rager. Yeah.
and they picked Jalen Rager, all the Vikings people started laughing. Like they started dying laughing. And then the GM's like, yeah, just go ahead and turn in that Jefferson card. And
Oh,
obviously we see that worked
yikes.
out. But yeah, it was hilarious. Like they just got like the Vikings people were laughing at the Eagles for last year's pick. And
That's
to
rough.
get it on camera, like if you're an Eagles fan and you see that video, you've
Feels
gotta
bad,
you
man.
gotta be salty. And then also, to give up a top 10 quarterback in the league for peanuts to the Indianapolis Colts, it's just, it's idiotic. So I'm projecting. I'm projecting. Um, so
Yeah,
let's,
right.
yeah. So if you want to move on to number 13 as well, that way we're not taking too much time. Um, we both have the same guy going here as well, getting Justin Herbert, that much needed offensive line help. With another one of my favorite offensive linemen in this draft. I was really hoping he was going to end up falling to the Colts, but I think that rocket ship has just pushed him too far up. And that is offensive lineman Christian Darrisaw going 13 to the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, I think from what I've read, there's a kind of a consensus for a top three offensive lineman for this class, being the three that have now was Sewell, Rashawn Slater, and now Christian Darrisaw. And yeah, I think if if I'll just say after pick 13, if even one of those three offensive linemen are still on the board after these first 13 picks, trades and everything permitted, I would be pretty surprised. So that this one was up to this point. I don't think I believe I had Rashawn Slater going in 1.0. I think I had him falling to the Chargers, but I don't think I've had them taking anything other than an offensive line all three times. So it's just, I mean, they've got the franchise quarterback, they've got weapons, they've got an extremely talented defense that just has to stay healthy for 1 year. That's all they need. It's just for them to stay healthy. And so, I mean, just protect your franchise quarterback, and Chargers should be. I think the Chargers are a team that could really make a leap next year. If health, that's it. If health can just work out in their favor for 1 year, I think the Chargers could really make a leap.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, protect that investment, protect that franchise quarterback. And I think Christian Darrisaw is going to do a fantastic job if that's where he goes. So number 14, we have another trade with you. I'm going to go ahead and get my pick out of the way. I have the Vikings staying put and going with the guy you had going at 11 to the Giants. I have them taking defensive end Quiddy Pay. I think it's a big need for them to have somebody opposite of Daniil Hunter. And there was some talk last year about Daniil Hunter possibly even wanting a trade. We know he set out all last year, and that pass rush really suffered. So if they do end up moving on from him eventually, whether it
Mhm.
is this year, whether it's next year, we'll see. But that defensive end position is still a need, and we know Mike Zimmer loves to get after the pass rusher, or uses pass rushers to get after the quarterbacks. He loves dropping guys into coverage. They love blitzing. And I just think having a guy that's as athletic and productive as Quiddy Pay on that team is just going to solidify that defensive line even more than it already is.
Yeah, no, I like it. I believe I have them addressing the same position a little bit later, but I did have them trading out of this pick, and I had the Bears actually trading up. Um, and this is the Bears were a team that I wanted to trade them up to get a quarterback because I do think that it's a possibility, but just the way the board fell, um, they would essentially have had to trade up to get in front of the Broncos. They would, have had to go up to about 8
And that's a lot of draft capital.
or 7. Yeah, that's, I mean, going from the 20s up to, the 7th, 8th pick is tough, and it's not undoable. I mean, they could do it if they wanted to, but it's going to be pricey. But I do think in this specific case, Jalen Waddle was still on the board for me at 14. I don't think he has any business being on the board at 14 with how talented he is. And so And the Vikings don't have a need there at wide receiver. So I didn't want to let Jalen Waddle slide any farther, but I couldn't put him there at the Vikings either. So I saw the Bears down there that um, I'm not sure how long Allen Robinson is for that team. I definitely don't see him being there after this year. And I'm not sure he makes it. I'm not even sure he makes it on the team at the start. Like Allen Robinson is a guy I could see being traded. Um, and so, I mean, outside of Allen Robinson, you're basically talking about Darnell Mooney, and that's about it. There's been some trade rumors with Anthony Miller, who really hasn't performed how he was expected to perform. And so I still think that this is a need for them. I do. I love, 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 love Allen Robinson, and I like me a lot, but I don't think Allen. They basically trolled the internet with that quarterback one Andy Dalton post. Clearly, he is not the quarterback of the future,
Brutal.
but whoever ends up being the quarterback of the future for that poor franchise with that poor fan base that's having to deal with this terrible shit that's going on right now. I think Jalen Waddle would be a game-changing piece for that offense to where if a team he's one of those non-quarterbacks to where if he's sliding up to this point and he's still on the board at 14, I think that that's a player worth trading up for, to where if you can give up a little bit of draft capital but go up and get a guy like this, to where I do think that they're at least, I don't know if I feel this way necessarily, but I think within like draft circles in the league, from what I've read, I do think that there's a pretty big agreement that it's Jamar Chase, it's the Alabama receivers, the Alabama duo. Then there's a pretty decent drop off. So I've got the Bears trading up to 14, the Vikings moving back, and the Bears getting the last of that three-part wide receiver trio there with Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, and really, like, if the Bears did want to move up to get a quarterback, I know this is kind of weird saying, and also I want to apologize because it seems like we're having some connection issues on your end as well. You're kind of coming in and out, in and out. Um,
Oh, okay.
and just if you're listening to this and it does end up being on the podcast, if we're not able to iron it out, you're still pretty clear in what you're saying and all that, so I think everybody is able to understand where you're going. It's just for 5 seconds you'll cut out and then you'll pop back in. But
Gotta love the internet.
yeah, love it. So like you were saying though, uh, with the Bears, if they do end up trading all that draft capital to move up, I honestly don't think it's really going to matter, because I think Ryan Pace and them, they're swinging for the fences. Those might not even be their picks next year that they're even messing with. So, I mean, they could probably give two shits less if it gets them another quarterback. And it's something I could definitely see happening. So we'll move on to pick number 15. We both have teams that traded down in this pick. We just have two different rosters, excuse me. I have the Giants, and yes, I know last episode, or not episode, but the last mock draft, I didn't have Devontae Smith, and I haven't taken him yet. And you're all wondering, did this dumbass leave him off again? Well, surprise, he is finally gone. And Giants fans, we've heard you. We've heard the complaining. We don't need defense. Get us an offensive weapon. And they went out and got Kenny Galladay. Well, right next to him, they're putting wide receiver Devontae Smith off the board. And not only do they get Devontae Smith, they get the Patriots first round pick next year and 177 this year. So I think if you're a Giants fan, you gotta love my mock draft.
Yeah, that would be a win for sure if they were able to trade back and still land the Heisman winner. For me, this is where I had the Patriots trading up with the Lions to grab Justin Fields, which had the Lions picking at 15. And if there was ever a coach that I thought would go defense in the first round, it's probably going to be Dan Campbell. And Micah Parsons seems like he's just ready to bite some kneecaps. I think that I think he's the best non-cornerback bet to be the best defensive player out of this draft. Like, there's some really talented corners, but if you're not going to go to corner as the best defensive player out of this draft, I think that Micah Parsons has just as good of a chance as anybody to be that person. So, to be able to trade back, the Lions are a team that had plenty of holes, receiver being one of them, but they have plenty of holes on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So you're able to recoup some picks and get what could be possibly the best defensive player in this draft.
Yeah, I think the lines would be fantastic. Parsons drops all the way down there. Um, so moving on to pick number 16. And yes, I do have another trade here. And it's just I've got it just based off some different stuff I've been hearing. Not necessarily with the team, but with the player. So I have the Browns trading. They trade number 26, number 89, and number 211 to move all the way up in this year's draft to number 16 with the Arizona Cardinals. And I have them selecting Christian Barmore, defensive lineman out of Alabama. This is a very, very, very thin defensive line or defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman class. And from everything that I've been hearing is the league is a lot higher on Christian Barmore than the media and the fans are. And I think it is because once he's off the board, there's a significant drop off. And with the Browns, I just decided to move them up to have them go get them because we saw what they signed Jadeveon Clowney. They have Miles Garrett. And I think the biggest need on that roster, which I think is one of the more complete rosters in the NFL, I think they're going all in right now and they're just trading some picks this year as well. They're not giving up any of their first or second round picks next year to move up to get this guy. And I have them taking Christian Barmore, shore up that defensive tackle position, let Clowney eat, as for 3 games or whatever, as long as he's healthy, and allow Miles Garrett to possibly get some help as well. And Browns are Super Bowl contenders. I think obviously they picked up Baker's 5th-year option, but to me this would just complete an offseason that I've absolutely loved so far from them, and it just gives them, to me, one of the top 2 to 3 complete rosters in the NFL. There's no weakness you can find on that roster.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And I think another thing that makes this pick so intriguing is I've heard about the lack of talent at this position in the draft, to where, if this is a need for you, I think Christian Barmore is the clear top player at this position, and there's a real, drop off after a couple of guys, like a small handful of guys you're talking about at the defensive interior that teams are interested in. And so, I mean, if you can get that top guy and not have to worry about that later on, I think that's smart. For me, I have the Cardinals making their original pick here, and I think that there's a clear need and a clear player that fits perfectly with Patrick Peterson no longer there. And even with Patrick Peterson there, the secondary is still a question mark. You've got cornerback J.C. Horn, my favorite corner in the draft, on the board, our favorite corner, really. Still on the board here. So this one was really just not a lot of explaining to do, easy plug and play for me.
Yeah. Yeah, JC Horn, if he falls all the way to 16, the team that gets him is going to be extremely ecstatic, whether that's the Cardinals or another team. So let's move on to number 17 with the Oakland, or not Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. Brain lapse there. Um, and we have offensive linemen going, just 2 different ones. I think they're going to take the tackle offensive line. Tevin Jenkins projects as more of a right tackle for them. You have them taking offensive lineman Elijah Vera Tucker, who projects more as an interior type of a player.
Right. Yeah, and I know that they brought back Incognito, but they have plenty of question marks across that offensive line with all the they made, kind of slicing and dicing that line. So, um, my the way that I addressed this pick basically was I just looked at who was my best offensive lineman available, regardless of position at this point, and so that's where I ended up landing on Elijah Vera Tucker.
Yeah, I think either one of these picks would just, I think it would be a good pick and a good investment for that team who, like you said, did dismantle their offensive line other than 1 or 2 guys. And, we know they have Colton Miller and Tevin Jenkins possibly. Like I said, he projects more as a right tackle, but he could possibly move his left tackle as well. They can kind of see where they want to put those guys, or maybe they even kick him inside. So number 18 here, we both have the same guy going. And if you listen to the last episode, you know my love for this guy. I was hoping he was going to make it far, but we have the Dolphins selecting here for their second first round pick. And they get my favorite pass rusher, Jalen Phillips, who is in Miami now. You know, he played college in Miami after those concussion issues. And I think there's just no way they want to let him get out of that city. And they, like I said, if you want to hear my true feelings on him and a guy who I've actually compared him to, um, listen to the last mock draft, and you'll get to hear my in-depth thoughts on that. But it seems like I finally brought you around because I know he was a little bit later on your board,
Yeah.
the last one, and he kind of shot up there for you.
Yeah, you were actually the reason. After I listened to you talk so highly about him, I went and watched some more and can definitely see where the appeal is there. And basically, the big difference here is I had 2.0, I had Aziz Ojolari ahead of him just in terms of, pass rushers. And that has now been flip flopped. I did put Jalen Phillips above him. I couldn't put him above Kwity Paye. I do still like I it's tough, man, because there's not a pass rusher in this class that I'm just completely in love with, honestly. Like there's linebackers that I like a lot. There's corners that I really like, but as far as pass rushing goes, I think that there's a lot of potential in this class, but there's not a clear guy that I'm just really in love with. Um, but you did talk me into moving him up to my second favorite edge rusher, and then just the whole like Miami connection and things like that. Whenever I was going through my mind, I was like, yeah, this is just they need pass rush. Jalen Phillips went
Brian
to college in
Brian
Miami. He's
Flores loves some defense, so
right. So yeah, and it's a position of need too. So I mean, granted, they shouldn't. I if teams are just drafting strictly for need in the draft, I think you're doing it wrong anyway. But whenever you can get a player like Jalen Phillips, he had the high school pedigree as a prospect. He once he got healthy, he had the production in college, and just what he put on tape. I mean, whenever after I heard you talk so highly about him, and I went back and looked at him, it's really hard to argue with the tape that this guy's put out whenever he is
yeah.
healthy.
I
I mean,
think
he's a
that
special player.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think without the concussion issues, you're looking at a top 10 pick,
Yeah.
defensive end position. And if those medicals check out, some team's gonna be extremely happy in the later half of the first round, with that guy. Like I said, I really wanted him to fall to number 21, even though the team that I love's not really picking there, and we'll get in on that here in a second. But yeah, it's he definitely has all the tools to me to be the best pass rusher if we're looking back on this draft a few years from now. Um, he's my favorite one by far, and I'm really excited to watch his development. And hopefully he can stay healthy and those concussion issues, um, don't plague him any more than they already have. So number 19 here, we have the Washington football team. Once again, both same position we're going, just a different guy. And to me, I have the biggest riser to me in this whole draft.
Uh,
Guy that's just come out of nowhere. And it seems like the more and more, as closer as we get to this draft, every time I hear his name, he's just creeping up and up and up and up. And I think that Washington is a team that his skill set would just flourish in that Ron Rivera defense. And that is linebacker Jamin Davis from the University of Kentucky. Obviously, we live in Kentucky, which you haven't moved back yet, but you're about to.
yeah.
So yeah, he's about to be back in Kentucky. So we're both Kentucky boys, and just having
But both lifelong Kentucky fans, though.
right, right. Um, so yeah, I think Washington just allows his skill set, a guy that's been compared very favorably to Darius Leonard. And anytime you can get a guy that can cover sideline to sideline, I do think he might need to put on a little more size. Um, but I mean, Darius Leonard, he plays linebacker at 215. And that's something that, 10 years ago, you'd look back and you'd be like, no way. Like
Yeah.
yeah, no way. Guy makes it work. And in a league that throws the ball and passes the ball, you need that coverage and you need guys that can get sideline to sideline and make these tackles on all these, screens and outs and all these tricks that the league seems to be heading in. Um, and especially with mobile quarterbacks too. He's a guy that can chase down mobile quarterbacks. But yeah, the guy's stock is just skyrocketed. And it's not just from what I'm hearing, it's from what I'm seeing as well, which, with UK football, obviously, I watched some last year, and he always did kind of have some speed. But once I really dove deep into the tape, the guy's just an electric football player, and I'm really excited to see where he's going to land in this draft.
Yeah, yeah, I love the landing spot, and if this did happen, I think that he would fit so well, exactly like you said. For me, after Micah Parsons, I think that the next linebacker off the board is going to be Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa from Notre Dame. As much as I love Davis, and I'm trying not to let my Kentucky blinders put him above Jeremiah. I do think that Jeremiah Owusu is the second best linebacker in this class behind Micah Parsons. And I think he would fit seamlessly in the same ways that you mentioned for Davis, essentially just take those praises about Davis and move them over to Koromoa. And I feel the exact same way, basically, that this is, if they're not trading up for a quarterback, I think this is one of the clear positions that they can really go after with, outside of that, a really solid defense.
Yeah, and I actually have him going a little bit later on here too. But yeah, I think either way, we both have the same position, similar type players, just
Yeah,
different.
they really are. Yeah.
So pick number 20, I have the Bears picking here. You obviously had them trading up a few picks earlier. So with the Vikings, so you have the Vikings at number 20. I have cornerback Caleb Farley. I have his slide coming to an end here. For whatever reason, we hear the back issues and all that kind of stuff, but apparently the guy's going to be ready to go and his medicals have checked out. And I think teams that aren't scared of the medicals, and if they do pass, they're going to be getting a top 10 type cornerback here and player in the later half of the first round. So obviously we know that now a huge position of need with Kyle Fuller leaving, some of the other younger guys not panning out that they've drafted. And I think if Caleb Farley can come in there, he can take over. Maybe not quite as well right away as Kyle Fuller was, because you have a Pro Bowl, all pro type cornerback there that they just let walk out the door. But here in a year or so, maybe can give you similar production and on a very cheap rookie deal as well. So I just think he's too talented to let him slide past this spot at the Bears with a position of need there at that cornerback.
Yeah, I mean, with Kyle Fuller being out the door, it makes way too much sense. I like that a lot. And as you mentioned, I had the Bears trading up to 14 with the Vikings, which has the Vikings here on the clock at number 20. And with this one, I've got them. They lost Riley Reeve to free agency. That this is a team that depends on being able to run the ball, and I do think that offensive line is a clear need for them. So I've got my next best offensive lineman after Elijah Vera Tucker, which is Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. Um, Now, Elijah Vera Tucker, I do think will be playing on the inside. So as far as tackles go, I think he is the clear third best or fourth best. I'm sorry, fourth best tackle in the draft behind the big three, which is the tackle position is what the Vikings need to look at. So for them to be able to trade back a few spots, still be able to address the offensive line, I think that this is a win here for Minnesota.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very good selection for them. And actually, I had them going defensive line, but you have them suggesting they're going to take the other line. I think any line they go, whether it's O line or D line, is going to be the correct pick.
Yeah, yeah, they need pass rush as well. So I think that the fit you had them taking the 14 makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah. So now we'll get in here to pick number 21. Uh, I have another trade here. You didn't really think that my boy Chris Ballard was not going to trade down, did you? It's like you guys haven't been paying attention. The guy's made one draft pick in the first round since 2018, and that was Quentin Nelson, which is a slam dunk, pick in the first round. So with this one, I do have the Colts moving back, although they still do end up in the first round because the pick that Kansas City traded to the Ravens, pick number 31, I have them acquiring from the Baltimore Ravens, who want to move up in front of the Jets, the Titans, the Jaguars to get that wide receiver. I think that's clearly a need for them. I have them trading pick 31, pick 131 in this draft, and a 2022 second round pick next year. Because obviously the Colts with the Carson Wentz trade, they could possibly lose that second round pick, possibly becomes a first round pick, based on the structure of how that trade was done. And Chris Ballard does not want to miss out on picks. He does not like missing out on picks. So I think there's a way that they move back, get another pick, and get a pick for next year as well to kind of offset that Carson Wentz trade. And they're still able to pick later on in the first round as well. So with the Baltimore Ravens moving up to pick number 21, leapfrogging some of their competition, I have them selecting wide receiver Rashad Bateman, who, once again, I stupidly left off the last round mock draft. And maybe not so stupidly, though, because there's been some talk that we're hearing that maybe he's going to end up being one of these wide receivers that falls down a little bit farther than what everybody's expecting. But I just think I had a tough time here because I wanted to go Terrace Marshall. But I love Rashad Bateman's game as well. I think either way they go, it's not going to be wrong, but I just wanted to make sure Rashad Bateman got picked in this draft. And with the Ravens moving up, I have them selecting him. And I know Ravens fans are going to be ecstatic if that is the pick as well, because they've just been clamoring for a wide receiver to have their guy throw the ball to, and ignore, even more because he's not a tight end. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean they've got speed at the receiver position with Hollywood Brown. They've got the great tight end and Mark Andrews. There is a clear need there for an outside possession receiver. Rashad Bateman is as good as anybody in that class
and
in this
that's Sammy
class outside
Watkins.
of yeah, as we all collectively laugh. Um, I mean, outside of Jamar Chase, I think in terms of possession receivers on the outside, I think Rashad Bateman can be as good as anybody. But like you mentioned, after his pro day, he's really started to slide a little bit, which I think will be a mistake. I know he came in a few pounds lighter than expected and a couple inches shorter than what he was listed at in college, which was part of his strength. Um, I took Rashad Bateman out of my first round mock for that reason, just because of hearing that NFL teams are a lot lower on him. If this was what I think teams should do versus instead of it being what we think teams are gonna do, which is a completely different thing, Rashad Bateman 100% would be in the first round for me. But I think that the buzz of him sliding outside of the first round is real. So I like the pick that you have there, but I don't know, how it's going to happen. For me, at pick 21, I have the Colts staying. My mock trade fun ended with the Vikings at 20 there. It's chalk the rest of the way for me. So for 21, I have the Colts keeping their pick. I think left tackle is a need for you guys with the retirement, but at this point, I don't think that there is a person there that's going to really fit that to where if you were to take an offensive lineman here, I think you would be reaching a little bit versus the guy I have you guys taking. Between mock draft 2.0 and 3.0, the guy probably rolls on the most is defensive end Jason Owe out of Penn State. I had him toward the end of the first round last time, and he just after watching his pro day, which I tried not to let pro day affect my thinking too much, but his was so great, and then just the talent and potential that he possesses as a pass rusher and just an overall defensive end player. I put him along with Jalen Phillips. Jason Owe also leapfrogged Aziz Ojolari
Welcome
for
from the
me.
South. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so for the Colts, that's where I've got him falling.
Yeah. I just don't think that the value fits at this spot where Chris Ballard wants. I think you can get a guy that's similar as a pass rusher. Maybe it is at Ojolari. Maybe there's some guys there in the second round that we haven't spoken of. That we can get into.
I
If this
do think it
wasn't
makes a
so,
lot of sense for
but
them to. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to trade back, and obviously you're much more tapped into what the Colts are doing than what I'm doing, or than I am.
yeah, I think there's a better than 50% chance that they do end up trading back.
Right. But the point you made with the Wentz trade, with the fact that, next year, they're definitely without a second round pick next year. They could possibly be without a first round pick next year, depending on how Wentz works out. I think the points that you made about Chris Ballard looking ahead and knowing that one way or another, he's going to be without a pick next year. I think that them trading down makes a ton of sense. If there's a player there that a team is looking to trade up for, and I think that Baltimore is the perfect fit. They now have an additional first round pick after trading Orlando Brown. They have a clear need at outside receiver. And to be able to leapfrog a team like the Colts that they're trading back with, the Titans, the Jets, who all have needs at receiver. I think that the mock trade that you have there makes a lot of sense and would not surprise me a bit.
Yeah. Another team that I debated on, which, like I said, I kind of heard this later on in the day and I debated changing it, was the Buffalo Bills wanting to trade up from pick number 30 to get ahead of the Jets and the Jaguars and the Steelers, who all three have need at running back. Maybe not so much the Jaguars because, they do have James Robinson, but he's an undrafted rookie from the previous regime. We'll see how that kind of works out there. Um, but they want to move up to get Travis Etienne from what we're hearing. And I think 21 would be a perfect spot for them to trade up to get above those teams, to leapfrog those teams. The Colts move back to pick 30 and gain some additional picks as well. So I think that could possibly be a real scenario that could play itself out. I think that's a perfect fit for both teams if they are looking to make those moves, which I do believe they do ultimately. But because we had this turned in, or I had this turned in earlier in the day, I didn't want to switch too many things up. So I just kind of stuck with the Ravens trading up. But so yeah, let's move on to pick number 22, the Tennessee Titans. I've had this guy mocked to them previously. He's a guy that some people are higher on, some people are lower on. He just kind of fits there. I think clearly as the cornerback 4 after the big 3 cornerbacks go off the board. And we both know that if there's one position of need, the Titans do need on that defense still. Regardless of the moves they made, I don't think it's clearly an upgrade either way of the moves that they've made at that cornerback position. So I think getting a guy like Gregory Newsome to come in and possibly shore up that position even more. I just think it makes a ton of sense for the team.
Yeah, no, there is a clear need at the position, and 2.0, I mocked the same position. 3.0, there's been a little bit of rumblings that have changed my mind a little bit to where, so rumor number 1 is that after Jamar Chase and the 2 Alabama receivers and Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, a lot of teams, according to Todd McShay, this is again coming another nugget put out Todd McShay's article that he put out today. That he said he hasn't spoke to a single team that didn't have Elijah Moore as the 4th receiver on the board behind those top 3 guys. So, Rashad Bateman, Terrace Marshall Jr., whoever you may have as your wide receiver 4. Apparently, a lot of NFL teams have Elijah Moore as their wide receiver 4. And I mean, while I like Bateman a little bit more, I like Rondell Moore, I like Terrace Marshall Jr. It's tough to argue because Elijah Moore is incredibly talented. And if you have a need at the slot receiver, he's ready to fill that need. From day one, he can be a great slot receiver, and he could end up being more than just a slot receiver as he develops. But from day one, he can be an extremely talented slot receiver. And then rumor number 2 is that Elijah Moore and the Titans apparently have had some serious interest for a few weeks now. And,
Well, they
even
do have
with,
another Ole Miss receiver, on that team as their wide receiver 1. So.
right, and that's worked out pretty well. So, they lost Corey Davis. They replaced him with Josh Reynolds in free agency, but they still have a clear need in the slot. They tried to sign Adam Humphries. That really didn't work out too well. Elijah Moore would be a incredible step up in the slot immediately for this offense, especially since you really don't know what you're going to get up the middle from the tight end position. Now that Jonnu Smith is out of the picture, they do have another tight end that actually outplayed Jonnu Smith. They were outperformed, from a stat standpoint, down the stretch last year. But I think Elijah Moore makes a lot of sense just from the rumors that I've been hearing or I've been reading about, from NFL reporters, both in terms of what the Titans are looking at and from how NFL teams view Elijah Moore. So I think corner honestly makes more sense here. And I almost mocked the same exact guy on this pick. But after everything I've read, both from how NFL teams view the guy and how the Titans specifically have been high on Elijah Moore, that's how I had this one shaken out.
Gotcha. Well, now we will move on to pick number 23, getting into the later part of our draft here. With the New York Jets, I have them taking a wide receiver since Rashad Bateman is off the board. And I haven't been, I haven't heard the same thing you have about Elijah Moore, but I haven't really looked too much into him. So who knows if that's true or not. Obviously, there's a lot of smoke screen with some of these guys,
Mhm.
maybe to cause Elijah Moore to shoot up and some of these other guys to drop down. We'll see what's happening with that. But I have them actually selecting my next favorite guy with the Jets, and that's wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. Obviously, when you're playing behind Justin Jefferson, you're playing behind Jamar Chase, you're not going to get the chance to shine. Well, both those guys, were gone this last offseason, other than a few games with Jamar Chase. And that's the guy that stepped up. We saw him shine. He has great measurables, a great NFL pedigree. Um, and I think just he's that next guy that can possibly flourish in the NFL, kind of like Justin Jefferson did, where, I mean, I'm not saying, they're going to have similar type seasons as what Justin Jefferson did last year, but I'm just saying, you know, obviously Justin Jefferson wouldn't go where he went if they were picking this year, you know, based on what happened last year, he wouldn't have fallen as far as he fell.
Right.
And I think we could be having that same conversation with Marshall Jr. here next year. And the Jets, they were the ones that signed Corey Davis away from the Titans, but I still think there's a clear need at that wide receiver position. And especially if you're going to be taking a quarterback, number 2 overall with Zach Wilson, you want to get that guy some weapons to work with. So I think that could be a slam dunk selection for the Jets. I thought about them going with Etienne here, but I just still think it's a little too early for him. Because Najee Harris is still my RB1 in this class, so it was hard for me to
Sure.
mock him above Najee Harris.
Sure. Yeah, for me, I mean, if Caleb Farley is still somehow on the board, cornerback out of Virginia Tech at 23, I think the Jets should literally sprint to the virtual table to turn this pick in with the need that they have at corner. And Caleb Farley, who is a guy, Caleb Farley has the talent to be the best corner in this class, which is a very talented corner class. He just has that the back injury concerns that has had him sliding a little bit. So if he does somehow slide down to 23 with his talent and the need that the Jets have. I mean, there was just, the slide came down to 23 for me, and there was no way I was letting them get farther than the need that they have and how talented he is. So this one was just, it took me half a second to make this pick.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed you didn't have the Colts taking him over Owe. Uh, because I really like that fit as well. So we'll move on here to pick number 24. We have the same guy. Obviously, this is the same guy we've mocked, and there's just been a lot of smoke to this fire, for the last few, I wouldn't even say weeks. It's probably been like a little bit over a month now. And that's the Pittsburgh Steelers taking running back Najee Harris out of Alabama. Obviously, we know the Steelers, they like to run the ball. They like physical runners. They like guys that'll, punch you in your mouth. And there's not a better one of those guys in this draft class than Najee Harris, who I think could possibly come in and be a day one just game wrecker for them. And that's just, we went over this pick multiple times, but I'll kind of go ahead and let you talk.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, Travis Etienne is still running back one for me, but I do think what the Steelers offense and what they do, I do think that Najee Harris is a better fit. Um, than Travis Etienne. And I think that offensive line makes a lot of sense here as well. If they wanted to take someone like the offensive line, at the offensive lineman out of Notre Dame, I'm going blank on Liam Eichenberg.
Hackenberg.
Yeah, if they wanted to take him or Samuel Costi out of Texas, I think I think that running back is a clear need, and I'm kind of at the point in the draft to where, I don't, we say never pay running backs. We're both very pro hashtag team never pay running back. But I am a big fan of drafting a running back late in the first round if your team has a need for that. Because one way to be able to get a lot of production out of a running back but not have to pay them is to be able to draft them late in the first round to where you're able to keep them for 5 years as opposed to 4 years. And then let Steelers, they're very dependent on the run game, especially with Big Ben at the point that he's in his career. Like, you don't want Big Ben throwing the ball 40 times a game. And one way to do that is to get a very talented 3-down running back in the first round of the draft, which is what we both have here with Najee Harris.
Yeah, I think that's just it's a need and a fit and a talent level that just it all makes a perfect marriage at that slot. Um, so number 25,
And not to mention, again, to reference Todd McShay's article, he's hearing the same thing with the rumblings from from other teams and other GMs and things. That there's a lot of smoke going on with Najee Harris to the Steelers at this pick. So we'll see.
yeah. So number 25, another guy that's been mocked previously that we both have as the same guy, and that's safety Trevon Moehrig going to Jacksonville. It's a clear need for that defense, and I think they end up with the best player at that position. It's not a very deep safety class; it's a very great safety class, but at the top, he's clearly a very talented guy, and I think that's just a slam dunk fit for them. And like I said, this is a guy that we both previously had multiple drafts that it just makes the perfect marriage. So, is there anything more you want to touch on with him?
No, there really isn't. I mean, he's clearing away the best safety for me. In terms of over the last 2 years, he's led safeties and pass breakups. I think that um, he's a guy that I had, I believe 2.0, 1.0, I had him right here at 25. 2.0, I mocked him up to the Raiders at 17. I think I don't think he's the 25th best player in this draft. I think that this is a you pick here for Jacksonville, where it's a need that matches best player available. To where I don't think that, a few years from now, I don't think he's going to be the 25th best player in this draft. I think he'll be higher than that. But just, the reality of the positional need and team needs up to this point, things like that, has had him falling to this position. But again, I keep referencing Todd McShay's article, but he's much more tapped in than I am. So if there's stuff like that, I like to listen to. He did say that he does expect the Jaguars to go very offensive heavy, even after Trevor Lawrence. They've got a multitude of picks this year early on, and he wouldn't expect all but like one of their picks to be offensive related. So, I mean, you could see a receiver here, or maybe some more offensive line protection, something like that. But if they do go the defensive side of the ball, on my board, I think it's either they take Trevon Moehrig here or the guy I have going off next to the Browns, or Christian Barmore to the defensive tackle. I think one of those two guys would be my pick here if they don't go
Yeah.
all.
So, speaking of, like you said, number 26, I had the Browns moving up to get Christian Barmore just based off what we're
It's like
hearing.
what McShay's been hearing.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, you cut out again a little bit there through that whole segment. So, um, we apologize. Like I said, technical difficulties with the internet if he's cutting out, but we're still able to hear most of what you say, so we're not really missing too much. And but to get into that Christian Barmore pick, I have number 16 with the Browns, trading up to get him, where you have them taking him here at number 26. from everything that I've been reading and hearing, I don't think he's going to make it that far just because, like we touched on earlier, um, it's a very very thin defensive tackle class, and um, from everything that I've heard, if you're going to want Christian Barmore, you're going to have to go up and get him because of how thin that position is. Because after that, there's a steep drop off. So that's what I have the Browns doing, where you have the Browns, getting lucky. They get him at number 26. I have the Cardinals picking at number 26. I have them taking the guy that you had going to Washington at number 19, and that is linebacker Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa. Uh, I just think the Cardinals need some more defensive help there, especially at that linebacker position. Maybe, with the guy they took first round last year, maybe they're able to get him more reps at that linebacker spot. But I think you can never have too many rangy, fast linebackers in today's NFL, especially with the way that the Cardinals want to play. That fast paced type of defense, that fast paced type of offense. I think it's just going to be a perfect fit for the player. And I could definitely see him going a lot higher than this. But, for whatever reason, he just fell on my board to where the Cardinals are going to be really ecstatic here with pick number 26.
Yeah, no, I like it. For me, for 27 with the Ravens, having them pick in their original spot. Um, this is one of my favorite landing spots. Clear need for an outside receiver, like talked about earlier. Whenever you had them drafting Hollywood Brown, they've got your the great tight end with Mark Andrews. If they can fill that outside possession receiver role here with Terrace Marshall Jr., I think that this would be a home run. And with him still being on my board here, this was another very quick plug and play type of guy.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I have the Ravens with their original pick. Obviously, they traded up and got Rashad Bateman, so that wide receiver need is not there. But um, with number 27, I have the Ravens, who always seem to be electing defensive ends and linebackers somewhere in the first, their first few picks. And that's just a team that just likes to churn those guys out at that position. So I have them taking defensive end Aziz Ojolari and lining him up to rush the passer and do what Baltimore Ravens do, and that's get after the quarterback.
Yeah, I like it. I don't think Aziz Ojolari could be as complete as some of the guys we talked about, like Kwity Paye and Jalen Phillips. But I do think just from a pure pass rushing standpoint, getting after the quarterback, he has just as much upside as any of the defensive end in this draft to be the best pure pass rusher from this class. So I like it. And the Ravens are going to get the most out of him if they do get him.
Yeah. So pick number 28, we both have the Saints staying put. There's actually been some rumbling the Saints could look to trade up for one of these cornerbacks. From what I'm hearing, like, possibly trade up into the top, 13, 12, picks in that range and possibly get one of these guys if they happen to fall. But for this draft, I have them staying put. This is a very hard pick to mock because there's so many different directions they could go because they don't necessarily have a huge need on that whole roster outside of maybe a quarterback, maybe a corner. Um, but I have them taking linebacker Zaven Collins here. We know Trey Hendrickson left, and that's going to leave a pass rushing slot open. Zaven Collins is a guy that he can rush the passer, he can drop back into coverage. He's just kind of a chess piece that you can put all over the defense and get him to make plays from different slots. So he's a guy that I was really excited for. And the fact that he was still here on my board, I think it's going to be a slam dunk selection for the Saints.
Yeah, Zayvon Collins was probably the number one toughest guy that I left out of my first round that I didn't want to leave out. I love the fit pick for me. It came down to I think opposite of Mount Marshall and Lattimore that they do need some help at the cornerback position, and I think Gregory Newsome II out of Northwestern provides that. I think that he would be a great complement to Marshall and Lattimore and a team that outside of maybe quarterback, and I think that they could use some receiver help as well. But at this point in the draft, and as deep as the receiver class is, I think it's something that they can wait on to where I don't, I don't think Gregory Newsome II has any business still being out there, so I couldn't let him fall any farther.
Yeah. And, you know, I had him going number 22 to the Titans. So the fact that he was still there, I think the Saints would be extremely excited about that. So pick number 29, which was my favorite pick of this whole mock, the most exciting one. It seems like we had the same guy. And we have the same kind of line of thinking here, and that is the Green Bay Packers finally getting Aaron Rodgers, a wide receiver that can make some plays. And if you've listened to any of the previous episodes with our mocks, you know how I feel about Rondell Moore and just how talented and exciting a player he is. That, you know, I think without the size issues, you're talking about this guy being right there with Jamar Chase as far as talent level. And I think just putting him on that Packers roster where you can move him around, and obviously we know their head coach comes from that Shanahan offensive coaching tree. There's a lot of motion. There's a lot of you know, designs that get wide receivers open. And if you can get this guy open, you can get him the ball in his hands. He's just a home run waiting to happen. And for fantasy football purposes, this is extremely fun as well. And I would just be extremely ecstatic if this is how it ended up going.
Yeah, yeah, no, nothing really too much to add outside of what you said. I mean, you know, put Devontae Adams in place as the clear alpha wide receiver one. I can't think of a more fun or better complement to what Devontae Adams brings to the table than Rondell Moore. I think it gives it the perfect balance of giving you something different than what Devontae Adams gives you. And yeah, I mean, as Aaron Rodgers, as a Packers fan, whatever the case may be, I don't see how you couldn't be thrilled with Rondell Moore falling
Yeah.
this far
And
and being able to land him.
yeah, and to give you kind of an example of what it would be like, I mean, imagine, you know, what everything was like whenever you guys had Randall Cobb there, and now put Randall Cobb on steroids and
Right.
have him be able to run, you know, like Tyreek Hill. And that's the type of player you're getting. So I'd be really excited. So pick number 30, we both have the Buffalo Bills here, not trading up. I didn't mention a trade up is possible earlier because they would like to get up ahead of some of these other teams and get the guy that you have them taking here at number 30. I have them selecting defensive end Jason Owe, which coincidentally you have the Colts taken. So maybe this could possibly be a trade back scenario as well here. Um, but Jason Owen, obviously, the production wasn't there in college, but the traits are there. You see the athleticism, and the guy just pops off the screen. He just, you know, for whatever reason, wasn't able to put it together and get the production. I mean, last year was a weird year, and that could be just a random occurrence. And I don't expect him to go in and have 0 sacks his rookie year in the NFL like he did in college. And he's too explosive of an athlete for that to happen. And I think the Bills would be ecstatic. They do have a defensive end core that is aging a little bit, and getting a young guy that, you know, has the ability that he has, being able to learn from some of those guys like Jerry Hughes, is just a recipe for a very successful player.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've got him going a little bit earlier, so clearly I have no complaints with where you have him going. Um, for me, like you mentioned, Travis Etienne is a guy that the Bills have been kind of attached to as somebody they are very interested in, somebody they're looking at trading up in front of some of the other running back needy teams like the Jets and the Steelers. Um, I do think that there's some growing hype that Najee Harris is the first running back off the board. And so, you know, for me personally, they don't have to trade up here and they get a guy that can instantly, yeah, add a jolt to that offense that they just simply don't have out of the backfield right now with Zach Moss, Devin Singletary. Neither one of those guys I'm very high on. And I mean, they do have some other needs on the defensive side of the ball that they could address here as well, which is that I like the pick that you had a lot there. But yeah, I mean, if Travis Etienne is still on the board, if the mutual interest is legit, I think that this makes way too much sense and could just be so much fun to watch with how much explosiveness they already have on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I definitely could see it being a perfect marriage there. And like you were saying, this is a guy that they've been tied to now for, a few weeks, and we could definitely see what happens with that. So, pick number 31. Let's get to my Indianapolis Colts, who traded down with the Ravens, and they are able to shore up that left tackle position uh, with offensive tackle Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame. Obviously, you know, Notre Dame's just an offensive line factory. It seems like there's always guys that come out of there and have successful NFL careers, and they pay him, or they're able to get him, pair him with his former college teammate Quentin Nelson there on that left side of the line. And you hear about Liam Eichenberg, and he's not the most athletic. He doesn't have, he's not the biggest guy, but he just consistently always wins. And whenever you're at that position, um, that's what you need, is you just need a guy that just wins reps. And I do think that he's just going to be, I think he's going to be a solid pro. Now, I don't think, you know, he doesn't have quite the upside that, guys like Darisaw and Slater and all these guys do, but I can definitely see him being, whenever you're looking back, right there in that class with Jenkins and Darisaw. Those guys all kind of have similar. It's almost just like what's your flavor when it comes to everybody outside of Sewell and Slater. It's just what's your flavor. You want the big road grader that's going to run you over and just demolish and humiliate you. You got Christian Darisaw. You want a guy like Tevin Jenkins, who's a little more smooth in pass protection, can hop out there at that tackle spot. Or do you want a guy in Liam Eichenberg, or maybe even Sam Cosmi? Sam Cosmi is just that athletic freak at that position that,
Mhm.
he can just get out there and get to that second level, which was another guy that I really considered here for the Colts as well. But Liam Eichenberg's just that guy who's just, you never see him make mistakes. You never see him lose reps. He's just always in the right position, probably has the best technique as any offensive lineman in this draft. And if they're able to pair him there, I think they're going to be really excited. Defensive end was also a position of need I thought about here because obviously I think that's just the other biggest area that the Colts need. But with the guys that were gone, I just I didn't see the opportunity there for them to pass on an offensive tackle.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And honestly, Sam Costa, the tackle out of Texas, was the guy I was kind of expecting to see, because I know you had a lot of praise for him on Mock Draft 2.0, and had me look at him to the point to where he was another guy that it was really difficult for me to lead. Like Javen Collins and Cosme are probably the two guys that I don't have in my first round that I think have a really good chance of being drafted in the first round. Um, yeah, but no, I like the pick there. For me, I have the Ravens sticking at 31 and addressing the linebacker position, taking Jamon Davis out of Kentucky. As you already mentioned earlier, whenever you had him going to Washington and pick 19, he is very much so on the rise. And as Kentucky fans, obviously we love to see that. As a Rams fan, I don't love to see it because early on in the draft process, he was a guy that seemed like a very likely person to be on the board for the Rams at their second round pick in a clear position of need. So, selfishly, that was something I was hoping was going to happen. Happy for him that it looks like that's not going to be the case, and he's going to get a bigger payday right off the rip. But yeah, so I've got the Ravens addressing that position, and with what the Ravens can do with defensive players, Jamon Davis will probably be an all pro in no time.
Yeah, definitely. Um, So to round out our mock draft, this is another one where I think, the Buccaneers, they could possibly trade up or down. I mean, it's hard to tell, but I don't think there's really any incentive to, because they have just such a complete roster. I think they can just let the board fall to them in the draft and or in the first round and take the most talented player on the board, which for me, for them is wide receiver Kadarius Toney. Obviously, we know Mike Evans is there. We know Corey or
Chris
yeah,
Godwin.
Chris Godwin. I'll say Corey Davis for whatever reason. But Chris Godwin is there. Both those guys do have some injury history. Antonio Brown is not back there. And that could be a position that I can see them wanting to take a guy like Kadarius Toney, who's very electric. Obviously, the Florida connection is there as well, with him playing at Florida. Keep him in the state, and let him catch some touchdowns from Tom Brady his rookie year and possibly, you know, kick his career off with a Super Bowl win.
Yeah, yeah. I no, I mean, I took the exact same approach with this pick as you did. Is basically I got to I got to the Buccaneers pick and was like, I mean, there's not a real clear hole on this team. I definitely across the board, I think they're the most complete team in the league. And so I took what was my favorite player still left on the board, which was the defensive end from Georgia, Azeez Ojulari, who did fall a couple spots for me compared to 2.0, but I do still think he has the upside to be the best pure pass rusher in this class. He might not be the most complete defensive end once it's all said and done, but just from a pure pass rush standpoint, the effort and that he plays with, I mean, it's in the explosion and the speed that he has, it's hard to ignore. And I think that he could, I think he could really bring a spark to that team in specific pass rushing situations throughout the season, to where that would, they would be able to benefit from that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I definitely can't argue there. That was the other position that I was kind of looking at for them, was defensive end and wide receiver as two spots they could attack. And that pretty much just sums up our first round. So if you made it this far, we definitely appreciate it. I know this was another long marathon episode. I know you guys are getting used to these, because we just have so much fun making them. It's hard for us to stop. So as always, I'll let Andrew do the close. Hopefully, the Zoom call allows him to kind of go uninterrupted on this.
Yeah. If you can hear me out there, I thank you for sticking with me through the internet troubles. My internet, chooses which day it wants to work well, which way it doesn't. But yeah, if you're still with us, thank you for listening. As always, be sure to head over to Spotify or Apple and subscribe to our podcast there. And you can also go to YouTube and you can see on my face the annoyance that I have with my internet from time to
See.
times. You could, we can watch us, kind of talk through this stuff instead of just listening to it. Head over to YouTube, the Amateur Experts Podcast. If you like the video, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then whenever you do subscribe to the channel, there's going to be a little bell that pops up. You're going to want to be sure to click that so that you can be notified whenever we do make a new upload every Tuesday morning. So that's something else to keep in mind. We're going to keep this thing going every Tuesday morning. We're going to have a new episode for you. Spoiler alert this time. Next Tuesday morning, we're probably going to be reacting to the NFL draft, if you didn't already put that together, because Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the NFL draft is going to happen. And then we're going to be here, Monday night to give our thoughts. So looking forward to that.
Because there's no way we did 3 mock drafts. We're not going to talk about the actual draft. So
right.
Well, there's no way that's not going to happen. So get ready for that one. We're really excited. I'm so excited for Thursday, man. I can't wait. I've actually got Jared coming over here, going to watch the draft with me, and I could definitely see, we'll see what happens. I might not be watching a Colts pick, but I definitely probably will Friday. So really excited about that. But just the fantasy applications as well. Some of these guys, really excited to see their landing spots. So as he said, thank you guys if you did make it this far. Make sure to comment. We love hearing back from you guys about some different things you would like to hear us talk about, because we're not all football. And then me and Andrew actually have a fantasy baseball matchup this week going on.
Head to head, yeah.
We're both pretty excited about that. We'll see how that ends up playing out. I don't know who's I think you're up right now. He had 3 pitchers go today, which generally means you're going to be down for the day for sure. I only have 1 guy, so but I know it was pretty close there for a little bit. I'm actually only down by 7 points, so
it's not bad at all.
Yeah, not bad, for sure. So I think your boy for the Dodgers cost you.
Julio, is he not pitching well? I hadn't even looked.
Yeah, let me see here.
Oh yeah, he gave up 3 runs in 5 innings to Cincy. Yeah, no, that's not up to par with what he's done this year.
Yeah, so if he's able to catch that L, that'll drop you another 5 points hopefully, and we'll be neck and neck there.
Yeah. It's a good start to the week for you.
Yeah, I'll definitely take that for sure. We'll see. I'm kind of nervous about Eflin tomorrow. I don't know if I want to bench him or start him, because I'd have the propensity to, like, guys that I choose to start. They'll have, if they're on my bench, they'll 24 to 30 points a game. When I
Yeah.
start them, they'll just have negative 15. So it is what it is. I'm somehow 2-1. Um, but and I'll take it. And then we also have our fantasy basketball playoffs going on as well. Kind of a little salty about them, even though I am up, with that. But I'm salty that my injuries are starting to mount at this point. I'm 15-1 on the season, and really the one loss, like, happened a couple weeks ago. Once the injuries started to mount up, I had Giannis miss almost basically the whole week. Um, and little salty right now about that. We'll see how some of these other guys end up coming back. Hopefully, I have a fully healthy team going into championship week, because I hate to lose it just because of health.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about fantasy basketball. I'm so
Yeah,
annoyed.
yeah, he's salty, but and I'm glad you missed the playoffs, because I would not want to play your healthy roster as well.
No,
Um,
two weeks in a row, I've led our league in scoring and spent the last like 9 weeks in the middle of teams in scoring because 3/4 of my roster was hurt. With it, I'm not bitter. It's fine. Everything's fine.
that's okay. At least you didn't go 15-1 and basically make the title game for your whole roster to decide to start missing weeks. I would rather have been in your shoes and not even make the playoffs if this was going to happen, as opposed to like going out like that. Like, that's so
Ah,
frustrating.
you'll be fine.
Um,
You'll win this week, and then we'll see what
yeah, we'll see. But good luck to you the rest of
we
the
should
way.
we
The
but
rest of
you'll be fine this week.
Yeah, and but yeah, good luck to you the rest of the week. Not too much good luck though, because I'm trying to stop your undefeated season early on. And we'll definitely be talking Thursday for sure. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will catch you next Tuesday. Make sure to like, subscribe, and thank you guys so much for listening.